I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of June 20th, 2024 to order at actually 7:28 p.m. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, tonight, roll call. I'm here, Mr. Peck. You're obviously here. Ms. Markovitz is absent. Mr. Foley is absent. Ms. Klau? Here. Ms. Jet Harris? Here. Is Mr. Liska here tonight? Would you please sit for Ms. Markovitz? Thank you. Ms. Susko? Ms. Uhas, you've been sitting in for Mr. Foley, if you wouldn't mind. Okay. We have our ex officio here tonight, Mr. Mulholland, our zoning official, and Ms. LaRocco, our recording secretary. Glad to see you all here tonight. As usual, we have public delegation at this time. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission regarding zoning land use items that are not on the agenda. We do have a lot of business tonight, so I would ask anyone speaking to hold to 2 minutes, please. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Mrs. McGowan.
So Lisa McGowan, 33 Spinnaker, so I hope I can read this a little clearly. Thank you for that. Thank you to the citizens of East Lyme, Mr. Mulholland and Jessica LaRocca, East Lyme Town Attorney, for providing me with the FOI information for tonight's presentation. Thank you all to the past and present members of the Zoning Board who answered my query with diligence and responsibility. My interest in attending Zoning Board meetings began back in October 2023 when I supported Pollinator Pathway. Since last October, I've been to more boarding meetings than anyone currently serving on the board tonight, except Norm Peck. For any newcomers, I'm the one that starts off every meeting reminding voters that the current chairperson, Ann Thurlow, had been voted off the board in November 2023's municipal election. Ms. Thurlow is now making some of the most important decisions affecting East Lyme residents now and for the years to come. After viewing the YouTube videos of all the meetings and rereading the minutes, as well as FOI materials, the records show the following. There's a clear pattern of deception by 4 of the current members, Ann Thurlow, Nancy Kalal, Debbie Jet Harris, and Michael Foley, to insert Ms. Thurlow and return Debbie Jet Harris to the Zoning Board. In addition, the information from my query will show the carelessness that Ann Thurlow exhibited when responding to said query. My query includes dates from July 1st, 2023 to January 16th, 2024. Ms. Thurlow did not accurately check the dates from my query and, in fact, flagrantly disregarded the instructions when she responded, quote, "I have whatever you sent out. I have no zoning text or other emails," close quote. That was dated January 18th at 9:24 p.m. The first of 3 emails that Ms. Thurlow sent out are as follows. 1, first to Mark Peterson, includes the phrase, "Hi, Mark. Yes, it's in the same room. You will be attending the meeting. Just take notes and report back." Dated 8/7/2023. A second email went unreported by Thurlow that was from Tom Kalal concerning a vacant zoning seat from Mrs. Kalal. Dated 10/31/2024. Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'll just give this to Jessica LaRocca. Thank you. Thank you for your continued consideration.
Anybody else tonight have anything? Okay, let's move on. We have business tonight. We are continuing with the public hearing of the application of Kristen Clark, P.E., for an amended modified conceptual site plan per Connecticut General Statute 830G, affordable housing, of the original application for a 25-unit age-restricted single and multifamily affordable residential housing development to be located on the northerly side of Boston Post Road on a parcel identified as 91 Boston Post Road, Assessor Map 31.0, Lot 2. I'd like to make a note that staff memos have been read and all documents have been given to members and are part of the record. At this point, we'd like to ask Attorney Garrity if he has any more to add.
I do, Madam. Just as a housekeeping matter, I don't know if there's any members of the public who want to speak for or against this application. In terms of what I was proposing to present tonight, it might make sense if they spoke now and I could wrap it up, but if there aren't any, then I'll just proceed with where I was at.
I'm happy to see if there's anyone. Attorney Carey, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing to say.
Okay, is there anyone in the public here that would like to speak? And let me, if you have spoken in hearings before, that is part of the record, so we don't need to repeat anything since we're all familiar with that. But would anyone like to speak for or against the project? No? Okay.
All right. So I have tonight just two additional exhibits that don't relate necessarily to this application, but they relate to issues or questions that were raised by commission members regarding the location of septic and well water, in addition to the location of septic within the distance that we propose, which is approximately 300 feet from the Latimer Brook. And the first is Ledgelight Health District approval for 101 Upper Patagonia East Lyme, which is directly across from Patagonia Lake. And in that particular case, the septic system was approved, and it's within 75 feet of the lake itself. So it's an indication that the town and the agencies that, because Ledgelight is a town agency that you contract out for, has approved septic systems to bodies of water that are far less than the distance we're proposing for this application.
Excuse me, Attorney.
Is this a new exhibit?
That's an exhibit, correct.
And Jessica, this would be exhibit what?
No.
MMM?
It'll be L, won't it?
Nope.
L. Okay.
This one is MMM. Thank you. Excuse me, Paul.
Sure, no problem. And then the second one is for 152 Upper Patagonia. And this, again, also what it indicates is that the town has approved systems where the well is within 75 feet of the septic. These were all approved fairly recently. So for purposes tonight, I would just like to go over what we believe we've been able to demonstrate in terms of the application. This was an initial site plan submitted on January 17th, 2024. We're now with a pending amendment to that site plan based on the denial, and that amendment is filed pursuant to 8-30G. The amended plan was prepared in an effort to address denial of the applicant's initial site plan based on the issues identified by the commission. In its denial, we have revised the site plan as follows. Portable water. The resolution here is the commission has received confirmation from Ben North, the municipal engineer for the town of East Lyme, that water and sewer, confirming the availability of municipal water to the property. Stormwater management, the resolution based on revised designs by Mr. May, and the comments received from the town engineer. The applicant provided the revised site plan, which is in the record as Exhibit ZZZ, and a preliminary stormwater plan in the record at CCC, so 4 Cs, that utilizes a subsurface infiltration trench to address the first flush of stormwater. Volume calculations were provided as part of the drainage report dated June 5th, 2024. The final site plan for this, as Mr. May has indicated, would comply with the updated and revised 2023 Connecticut Stormwater Manual, inclusive but not limited to rain gardens if they are deemed necessary. The potential wetland impact and erosion concerns, the applicant has redesigned the proposed project to utilize those portions of the property already developed, including the existing entry from the Boston Post Road and structural locations. As you may recall, under the new plan, we're taking out the existing house, moving the other buildings back so that we are further from Latimer Brook, but also putting those buildings in an area which is already subject to existing development. The site plan further proposes is to largely use the existing elevation grades for the proposed improvements, including the building, roads, septic, and parking. Fire safety, the resolution that we propose based on staff comments and commission comments is, since we have the availability of municipal water, fire hydrants will be available and located within 100 feet of the proposed buildings. Further, fire safety will be provided by the buildings being sprinklered as required by the applicable building code. Traffic. The applicant provided confirmation from the Department of Transportation in the record at Exhibit DDD and Exhibit EEE of access to the subject property conditioned on a final site plan providing a crossbar at the exit, a double yellow line, a stop sign, and a maximum grade of 3% for the first 50 feet on the entranceway. Connecticut Department of Transportation requested a sightline plan, which appears in the record in this matter as Exhibit FFF, and that was provided to you last week and has been provided to the Department of Transportation. The Latimer Brook wildlife concerns, putting aside the fact that the Commission has no authority over the issue under Connecticut General Statute 8-30G, which limits the review to matters of public health and safety, the applicant has submitted and retained, the applicant has retained REMA Ecological Services, and that was Mr. Logan who spoke at the last meeting, and he's provided the Commission with a summary of his findings and the review of the inspection of the plans and subject to the property. And if you recall, his testimony was that based on the conceptual plan submitted, he's confident that there won't be any negative impacts of that. And I think he also indicated, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, that as the plan gets more detailed, the effects of that would be to further reduce any potential concerns that one might have. The concerns regarding the conceptual site plan, Commissioner Peck had expressed some concerns regarding the proposed site plan system. That was partly the reason for introducing those two exhibits tonight. The proposed system will require approval from the State of Connecticut Department of Health, the Ledgely Health District pursuant to the Public Health Code, Section B-103. Subsurface sewage disposal systems within the scope of that regulation shall be designed and installed and operating in accordance with the technical standards for subsurface sewage disposal published by the State of Connecticut Department of Health. We note too that any approved system is going to require multiple inspections during the construction period. In response to comments from Commissioner Jet Harris about the wildlife, the REMA Ecological Service summary of findings confirms, one, in reviewing the plan and drainage report is our professional opinion that the proposal is sensitive to the preservation and impact minimization of the site's natural and ecological resources, including potential listed species, that the proposed development footprint is concentrated within an area that is already disturbed or which does not contain any sensitive or significant resources. Further, in regard to the listed species of their initial surveys indicating that the available habitat is suboptimal for both the special concern wood turtle and the smooth green snake, as well as the ribbon snake, which also occur here. Nevertheless, the proposed development is not encroaching upon the potential habitats of these species. I think what you may recall from Mr. Logan's testimony was that those species, while if they are on the site, are in an area that is not proposed for any development and is significantly far from the area that is proposed for development, that they will not be affected by that. In addition, the Connecticut Deep National Diversity Database report provided in the record of this matter by the applicant provides mitigation criteria to ensure such species of special concern actually exist on the site, and that during any sort of development, those species are protected by steps that would be taken to minimize any impact, including not allowing development during certain periods of the year when those species are either nesting or procreating. My client and I have significant concerns regarding the application process that we're being subject to. I think I've told you that, but I'll sum it up here. I do not believe that the public hearings on these were lawfully permitted, that not all the documents that were submitted, and I think that's close to being corrected, if not being corrected, were not timely filed or uploaded to the website. That we've provided, at the insistence of the Commission, information that's not required under a conceptual 830G plan, and we've done that in an effort to show you that the conceptual plan can, in fact, meet, when it comes in for a final proposal or approval, can meet all the requirements of the zoning regulations. It's our opinion that we have satisfied the requirements that exist for the zoning commission at this point in time. And again, as Mr. Mulholland queried during the, I think it was the first hearing before the modification plans were submitted, that we do have to come back for a final site plan approval. Conceptual site plan only allows us to take us to the next step, but it tells us that the commission would otherwise, assuming we can meet all other regulatory requirements, would view this project favorably. In addition, there's no activity proposed in the inland wetlands area. The wetlands agency has a limited upland review of this area, and it has any review of the upland wetland area, and this is to address the concern that some of the commission members have, because it's outside this commission as a zoning commission's authority or jurisdiction, that the inland wetlands agency may look in the review area, but it's the activity in the review area that has a negative impact on the wetlands themselves, not an impact in the review area. And again, septic approval is going to be required by the state of Connecticut Department of Health and the Ledgely Health District. Soil and erosion control proposals and stormwater management must be approved by the town engineer before we can go further. Approval of by the fire marshal, the building plans, hydrant locations, and turnaround locations, again, are all matters that another agency will consider and are beyond this agency's jurisdiction. And approval by the municipal engineer of the water service plan, which would be developed as part of a final plan. And with that, I don't believe I have anything further.
Thank you. Let's see. Last call, Attorney Carey, do you have anything?
No, any comments I have, I think we make during deliberations.
Okay, do I have a motion to close this hearing?
I have a question.
Okay.
A question to our town attorney and Bill Mulholland and Mr. Garrity. The use of 100% organic fertilizer and treatment on this site. What's the best way we can guarantee that this will be the way it is?
Mr. Peck, I'm not sure what you mean by can we guarantee that this is the way it is, but I ask where in the zoning...
Guarantee that there will be nothing but organic treatment and fertilizer used on this site.
Well, I don't think that is necessarily an issue in terms of the effect it might have, because I think what you're doing is saying what effect, if any, would this have on Latimer Brook, since it's down gradient from that. But the septic systems would be designed such that they do not impact Latimer Brook. In terms of putting any sort of fertilizer or whatever on, it's going to be, assuming we even do that, it's going to be limited to the area which is approximately 300 feet from the Latimer Brook. And if you recall, the area where the buildings are proposed essentially drops off behind those buildings. So there's not likely, if at all, to be any activity that would utilize fertilizer down here. Whatever might be used would be up here. I think if the commission says, you know, can you guarantee use of organic fertilizer, I think we'd accept that as a condition of any approval.
May I ask a question?
It's my follow-up with that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I was going to say, this is Tim May, May Engineering. Is there a town ordinance against using, is there anything in your planning and zoning regulations that preclude using organic fertilizers?
Not that I know of.
I mean,
Bill?
are they illegal
I think-
retail product to be used in accordance with whatever direction? I mean, those are things that are, you know, outside of our scope for design. So I'm just saying, if it's in your zoning regulations, we'll certainly abide by it. But I think it's, you know, it needs to be in your zoning regulations so we can...
So I think the question is, if I can rephrase it, Norm, You're asking whether they would consider that. There's nothing in our regulatory purview to do that other than to condition an approval. I think you could do that. However, there's no guarantee because once they're gone and it's a homeowners association, who knows what they'll do?
Well,
They're not going to review the documents, what that we may or may approve at some meeting. Great difficulty with homeowners associations because they really don't go back and look at the approvals of why their development got approved, so difficult to regulate. We as staff just don't have the time. We don't have enough bodies.
Perhaps Mrs. Hardy might answer as to the chances of a town ordinance to prevent anything but organic fertilizer and treatment.
I think that the board would want to hear specific recommendations from the zoning commission, somebody, Mr. Mahone, perhaps some member of the board, to come in and make some specific recommendations. This is not something normally that comes to the board for something, but I think it's something that we should be aware of.
Finally, I agree with Mr. Mulholland on the point that even if your current zoning regulations do not require or prohibit the use of any fertilizer other than organic, that you could, if it's reasonably connected with the activities that are proposed for the site, I think you could require that. Enforcement, just like lots of terms and conditions of permits, becomes an issue. But if you have that as a term and condition, and if things start getting in the water, or it's discovered that things are in the water and the source is this site, then you'll have that as something to enforce.
all right, and let me just address that. I don't think we're objectionable to that, Mr. Peck. So, as a condition of approval, I think we would be fine with that. From one perspective, setting aside the environmental, fertilizer's fertilizer, right? So, and I don't think there's any significant, we're not talking about hundreds of acres here, so it's a small area that's proposed for development. So I don't think we would have any issue if the commission said, we want a condition of use of organic fertilizers. I do want to correct one thing, though. Mr. Mulholland said it's a homeowners association. This is being proposed as rental property. So there will be a owner of the entire complex, whether that owner is also the property manager or not. But if we have a property manager in there, I'm happy to make sure that the property manager knows what can and can't be put on the ground.
Mr. Garrity, in your opinion, they could be turned into condos at some future date without any regulatory oversight. Is that correct?
I'm thinking through the Condominium Act right now. It's a legal status of title, so I don't believe, and I have to look at your regulations a little bit further, but I don't know that we would be.
Under the 830G, I think once you establish your path,
Right.
it has to stay there. I don't think you can switch.
Leave it to the engineer to
It's
correct
40
me. Sorry.
years. But
Yeah, right. So it's being proposed as that, and that's what the affordable housing portion of it that has to be approved by the state is on. So it would remain rental.
well, I'll see you in a few years and we'll see what happens.
You
What is
won't.
it, 40 plus?
You're lucky if you see me in a few months.
Okay.
One other question. Public access to the open space. Would you comment on that?
Well, the open space is back. I don't think this property is. When I was looking at one of the earlier maps, is immediately contiguous to the land. And I'm looking at this board to see if I have a copy or something to that effect. The open space for the property, or I shouldn't say for the property, but the open space is this exhibit, this area back up here. So this is the property marked in red. So we don't have direct access to that, but you could gain access from our property over here along the highway. It's probably pretty much unlikely, but as had been indicated, I think at one of the previous presentations, we don't necessarily have an objection if an open space pathway gets created through the property that abuts us to the rear to provide access. but I can't guarantee that that owner is going to allow the access.
I'm talking about the open space on the site.
Oh,
Down along
the
Latimer
plain-
Brook.
The floodplain essentially down along the river.
Yeah,
I'd have to talk with the client about that because there are issues relative to insurance and liability. Typically, there is a Good Samaritan statute in the statutes that provides if you dedicate certain open space for public use, the owner has no liability for that, assuming that they don't make any changes or have any what we like to call attractive nuisances on the property. But I'd have to understand from the client what, because one of the things we'd be talking about then is whether or not we have adequate parking for units and adequate parking for public, which is an undetermined number at this point in time.
I think the open space is primarily for the residents.
Right.
And to maintain the land not to be utilized or developed. So that would have to be a question whether it's going to be publicly open.
Right.
You know.
I mean, we were looking at it as open space simply to preserve it from development, not necessarily for recreational or public use. I know there was, at one of the earlier sessions, discussion about the access through the rear to that, but not necessarily on this parcel allowing public access, just to leave it in its natural state. And that's why the development, because as you recall from the sidewalk, this is reasonably level going in through here. I mean, the road's in already, the house was set back there, so the amount of disturbance is going to be very minimal in terms of grading, and it's a big change from the prior one because we had initially had units down here, and that would have created more disturbance. So, but the intent essentially is, I've always understood it from my client, is that open space was being dedicated as open space to prevent any further development of it.
Was that 8 acres?
This is about 1.6 acres of development, maybe a little bit more.
No, the open
Oh.
space?
It's around 88.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember in your original proposal, you said 8 acres for public to use.
Yeah.
But not what you're saying today.
Well, right. When we're talking about public, the folks within there, but wouldn't necessarily be open directly to the public. In other words, we're not going to post a sign out there.
So when you were doing your plan, you referred to the drawing as up here and down there. Because it is up here and down there.
Correct.
And water flows.
Downhill. Most.
That's the sensitivity that, you're talking about. Why was there sensitivity to fertilizer?
Right.
Although I don't see in our notes where organic fertilizer was initially used.
I don't know. I mean, it was. Let me. It was.
This is the first time I've heard it
Yeah.
tonight.
No, it was originally farmland, and the piece behind it, I think, still has some use as far. I mean, it's essentially the same. They were the same parcel. When Mr. Title's parents died, he gave one parcel to his daughter, or one to their daughter, one to their son.
Who brought up organic fertilizer? I haven't seen it previously in our notes.
It is not, it's not a design consideration.
Yeah.
It's not in your zoning regulation.
Yeah.
It's not a
Right.
design consideration. It's a legally purchased product. It's retail, it's sold at every hardware store. So.
I don't know that one's better than the other.
I don't either. I don't either.
So, I'm just saying it's not a design element of this plan. But the open space was primarily to show the commission that we don't plan to develop this, and we'd like to make it open space for the residents of this parcel.
Who's going to hold title to the open space?
I would presume either the town would accept the conveyance and conservation, or the East Line Land Trust. And there have been ongoing discussions with the East Line Land Trust.
Thank you. The total acreage for this project is,
12.6.
and the total parcel has how many acres in it? The total parcel.
The total parcel is 12.
One and the same?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What happened back in the original presentation? We talked about access of the clients to be able to walk to buy groceries. What happened to that?
Well, That, as we explained, this bridge abutment right here and the State Department of Transportation right away goes right up to there. I mean, you can walk there. It's not the safest thing in terms of that, but we would have to have the state agree to that. We can't represent on behalf of the state that we can put a sidewalk in there because it has to go back to Department of Transportation for that.
Okay, and now these buildings are 3 stories
Yes.
plus the basement, or
Well, with the
whatever you
basement,
call the,
with the walkout, yes.
okay. So that means they're gonna stick out like a sore thumb, is that not properly?
No?
Did I not get that right?
No, you didn't.
You did, because they're
The
they're
ledge here.
basically benched in, the bottom floor will be down subterranean virtually compared, and so there would be a 2-story structure from what you would see. And you would see three stories of exposure, but I actually went over to the parking lot where you have your grocery store, and you can't even see this property, so you wouldn't see.
Well, until you get a 3-story building on it.
Well, no,
I don't think
because,
so.
no, just 2 things, Chair, excuse me, Commissioner. This slope here is such that it's higher than the buildings. So when you're coming southbound on either 95 or maybe eastbound there, but westbound, excuse me, on Route 1, you can't even see the site. You may recall when you walk in, you can't even see that house, which was 2 stories. It's set so far back, and then from this side, if you could see the buildings, you'd be standing in the back of, I don't know if it's still Colonial Market or not, but you'd be looking from the Colonial Market site. You'd be, a loading dock. So I'm not sure that that would have any adverse aesthetic impact on it. But again, the area is treed along the water there. It is treed fully in here. But again, as when you come in the first 50 feet or so, the driveway goes up rather rapidly or quickly and then levels off. But you can't see any of the existing buildings from the entrance to the property.
When the first presentation happened, there were the townhouses, I think that's what we call them.
Correct.
They had the farmy look, but the presentation of the units were very contemporary.
Right.
Is that still the plan?
I believe it is, yes, because it's going to be flats now, so the design has changed to resemble a little bit more of an apartment look than a townhouse look, which is, apartment looks tend to be horizontal in terms of that, whereas the townhouse tends to have a more vertical look because you're trying to separate the units based on the style in front of you.
So, Mr. May, you said that a septic tank should last 50 to 100 years. Last week,
If it's built to standards, yes.
Okay, so here's my question. How do you know it's leaking between the 50 and 100-year mark?
Well, you'd have a breakout, or the system would be failing in some capacity.
But the system would fail and then everything would run downhill.
Not necessarily. You could have a wet spot where it's not absorbing correctly. But it's not a guarantee it's just going to blow out and run down the hill. At the same time, talk to the Department of Health. They'll tell you how many septic systems are failing.
Well, I'm just trying to understand this because
Not
I
all
read
septic
this
systems.
document which talks about the problems that Mr. Danila talked about, which is that the Nyack River is pretty much at its tipping point, and according to Jamie Vaudry, the person who did the majority of the research, the problem is septic tanks. So I just want to know how I know that that septic tank is indeed leaking before it gets to the Nyack River.
You have 2 ways. You have the tanks pumped on a regular basis. That's I think septic people will tell you that's the primary means by which to preserve and protect the tank from having a failure. The tank itself is concrete. Tank is not unlikely to fail, but what the tank will tell you is if the leaching system isn't working properly, as Mr. May said, you may be able to look in that tank and tell, because it should have simply a water level in there. So the baffles, there's a low baffle coming in and a high baffle going out. The high baffle gets clogged, or something in the leaching system or the pipes that go down to it are either broken or not working, you're going to see that in the tank itself, because the fluid is not going to pass out to the leaching field. But
So-
And one of the things is you may want to educate yourself on how actually septic system works. The field is not at 100% capacity all the time. It's actually designed so that it's got a lot of excess built into it. And one of the things that happens if your tank, let's say you've got too much solids and there's a float, there's a filter that will actually rise up to keep it from going into the septic system, and then your system will back up, and the homeowner will know exactly, if they have to have a pump. There'll be no question, because their toilets won't flush or anything like that. The tanks are sealed, so if they just totally ignore it and just keep going, yeah, it would be a problem after a while, but there's a lot of indications that you're going to have a failing system way before you have a failed system. So the other thing I'd like to remind you is that I live in Montville on the hill, and I'm in Stony Brook Reservoir, and periodically, I think it's every 10 years, they request to come on my property and actually inspect my system. Now, hopefully Nyack River Watershed has the same kind of system set up, because that's a reservoir for the London water supply. So everybody in that watershed is subject to inspection, I think every 10 years or so. So that's something that you would need to look into, and that's also something you may want to talk to your health district about, because these are all state regulated by the Department of Health. And even though the Nyack River Watershed has its concerns, is that part of your design parameters for your zoning? If it's part of your design parameters, I'd welcome to match my design to that. But you're taking something that's needed, but is it part of your zoning regulations to design too? Does that make sense to everyone?
The other issue too, in my experience with this, has been that where we see these issues being raised about the septic systems being the problem, it's usually because you have densely populated areas, down like Sandra's Point or whatever, no sewer, and the systems are old and they are not designed to the current standards in there, and therefore they don't attenuate the water sufficiently before it reaches the next water body. But again, as Mr. May pointed out, we're designing to what the state requires us to do. They're going to look at it, and they may impose, because it's an apartment, I don't know, that you have to have cleanouts every 2 years or every 3 years. I mean, that's what's recommended by the septic people, and I don't, because that's how you avoid a problem in the leaching field. It's rarely the tank that fails. The tanks can generally withstand pretty much everything. They make tanks that you can drive trucks over the top of, because they're placed underneath driveways and so forth. It's either the piping from the tank or the leaching system that ends up failing at some point in time. But as Mr. May said, and I said, my experience, and litigated a number of cases over septic systems that failed, that's where you see it. You can usually see something in the ground long before it reaches Latimer Brook.
You know what? If someone's asking about the views, there's an aerial photograph, and I just want to show, and here is the market, CVS, and I think McDonald's. There's the pond, and the development will be right here. So there's literally no view that you would ever see any of these apartments, and certainly if they're only 2 stories or 3 stories. But keep in mind that they're benched in, the lower floor is down lower, so it's not going to be any higher than the existing house that was there. And there's no views from any other direction, because there's the parking lot. I've driven around, I can't see anything.
We have a lot of developments in town where you can see the roof line.
Yeah.
I have a question. I need some help understanding something. I think it's something that Mr. May might be able to help me with. I was reading through some of the paperwork, and it said that the state suggested a 3% slope for the first 50 feet of the driveway, and why did they make that recommendation? And
That's a state design standard. They want a 3%. It's like a landing pad. So when you come down a steep slope or vice versa, it gives you a place to stop. Your car is level, and you have good sight lines. So you're not trying to stop on the
Right.
feet or vice versa.
I'm just trying to visualize, what does 3% mean over
It's
50 feet?
3 feet every 100 feet. So, or 3 inches every
So,
100 inches.
okay.
So, you know,
Alright.
it's, probably about that.
Okay,
It's not very much. Parking lot standard for, the maximum parking lot is 5%. Anything more than that, your doors won't open and close. It's kind of dangerous.
okay,
And then they reserve handicap parking spaces up to 1%,
okay,
so that your doors don't slam in. So
okay.
if you've ever been in a parking lot where your door won't, you know, suddenly will open up or shut on you,
The
it's
slope is
probably
wrong.
more than 5%.
Okay, okay. And the other thing on that sort of note is considering actual vehicle speed, not the posted speed limit, because we all live here and we all know that. I'm wondering if and I'm going back to when we did the site walk, and I know that there's a rock ledge there, and I think I was reading something about you need a 5-degree or something, a radius, a 5-degree radius for a sight line. So is that still going to be applicable, and would the change of the slope affect the sight line?
Well, it just makes it more optimal, because now you're going to have a site, that last 50 feet of the road connection will be parking lot level, right?
Uh-huh.
So like we've established that.
Yeah.
So I guess if it was down more than, 3% or whatever, your car would be coming up, so you'd be kind of at a, lower, I guess, or if you were higher, but it affects your sight line, and they establish that by your sitting height versus the headlight height of a
Okay.
vehicle at night or during the daytime. So that's how they come up with that, is your ability to see that vehicle. We're not dealing with crest curves or curves here. We're looking at this straight line stop
Right.
and sight distance. So, and they,
Except for that really is on a curve, and that's what I was thinking
Well, yeah,
about, because you showed us that aerial view
Right.
from
Well, this was-
1965, and, yeah, that's what I was looking at, and I see,
this is the posted speed limit design is 335 feet, and that is for 35 miles an hour. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we have demonstrated it goes out to 445 feet, and there's your walkout stop.
right, but did I hear you correctly that this was an aerial photo from a really long time ago, like 19,
No,
no?
No.
this is
Okay.
probably,
That was for the wildlife, it was 1965.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
this is probably 2018
I
or
like,
okay,
later. And keep in mind that the DOT designed this when they did their,
Pulled that one out.
in the 80s. They designed this, so it's actually,
right.
they'd be approving their own design. So it's already been
Ye-
approved.
Well, except for that, conditions are way different now than they were back then, so, I
But
mean,
the-
traffic,
No, the traffic's still the same speed, still the same everything. Actually, you have a sight line that supports a much higher speed. The design speed is the design speed of the road.
I understand that.
So we actually have a sight line that's greater than the design speed. And plus, there's two things happening. You're coming off. There's things that are telling the traffic to slow down, whether they slow down or not. But there is a stoplight. I know there are 800-900 feet down here that they have to stop. So whoever comes barreling through at 100 miles an hour is just not doing. They're not good driving.
That sightline picture is current on there, and what we were able to demonstrate with that is the distances that we can exceed that. But Mr. May is right. The sightlines are set based on the speed that's established by DOT, and DOT establishes the speed by looking at the road conditions, not necessarily the amount of traffic is on there, but the road conditions.
I understand
Whether there's
all that.
curb and so forth.
I understand all
yeah.
that.
And if you look, I don't know what exhibit number it is, but in the last meeting, we submitted correspondence from my client to DOT and the email response back from me, and they have approved that sight line on there.
that's all I have.
Can you explain crossbar? It's in quotes, so I know it's not an actual crossbar. But I think it's on that drawing, right?
Is this a crossbar or stop bar?
It says in here, quote, crossbar. The final site plan providing a crossbar.
I thought that was a stop.
It's under number 5, traffic, on your presentation.
Yeah, I think that's, we may be using interchangeable terminology for it, but it's basically just the white bar on there that tells you where to stop so that you, because that's where the sight line is measured from.
No, it says a crossbar at the exit, a double yellow line, a
Right.
stop sign, and a maximum 3%
That's
grade.
the stop bar, that's the white bar.
That
and
tells you
have
where
a
to
stop
stop.
sign
That's on the
before it.
ground, and so you know,
You have to position the stop bar so that your front tires are on it, and then you can take your sight line measurement.
I'm sorry, it's just a regular stop sign with a white
it's a
line.
painted line on the ground.
I
Yeah,
got it.
exactly, yeah.
Thank
Try and give it, more official sounding terms, but yes.
Are there any other questions?
Just one more. Could you bring that site plan up there?
Which one?
The sight line plan? I spent a little time on this, and I was standing here in a position where I thought the driver's seat would be. And I discovered that this tree, the sight line went to that clump of brush there.
Well, that'd be even further out, that'd be more like
Right,
500 and something.
right. My question is, I think the site view is better than what you portray. And my question is, can you get rid of that, which would extend it beyond that point?
Right, yeah, there's a couple of things, there's the Town of East Lyme sign that could be, I don't think it's a problem, but there's several things we can relocate to make things better. But this is kind of a artistics,
Yeah,
we look at what we know
yep.
we can show within reason.
And I counted from that point, and if the trees are gone, it would be better. But from that point to this point, I was counting about 6 seconds that it took a car to go from that bush to this point
It's
here.
about 600 feet, 500, 600 feet, if you're traveling.
And if that was removed, you'd get
Better sight?
something.
I mean, we can certainly
Yes, sir, I don't mind.
talk to the DEP.
I know this is the final site plan subject, but
Well, the other
Just a
thing is,
comment.
you guys know what this number actually means? That's the ability for this driver
To stop,
to react
to react.
and stop. And if they're, if you remember back in driver's ed, they tell you to stay so many,
Car lengths.
car lengths behind, and it's the same rationale here. And it's also, that's in case this guy just pulls out in front of him. So there's a couple of things there that happen that, the drivers actually have to do their job, and that's the expectation of the driver. So there's also the expectation to provide a safe, and these distances clearly show that this is a safe entry and exit to this property.
thank you.
Right, yeah. As I said, we can certainly reach out to DOT. I doubt, based on the communications we've had, that they'll have an issue with that, so.
Any other questions, or do we have a motion to close the hearing?
I make a motion to close the hearing.
I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? 600. Thank you.
Reading the minutes, and every second with you.
We will open our regular meeting with the approval of the minutes of June 6, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Does everyone, do you want to vote on that? Everyone say aye or nay, or all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, 501. Mr. Liska, you weren't here for all the recent presentations, but have you reviewed everything, and do you feel comfortable?
I have
Okay.
read, and I was just telling Ms. Harris that she seconded everything. She said, "You're not fast enough." So
Okay, thank you.
I have read.
Okay, awesome. So the first thing up is the application by Kristen Clark, P.E. for an amended, modified conceptual site plan approval per Connecticut General Statute 830G, affordable housing of the original application for a 25-unit age-restricted single and multifamily affordable residential housing development to be located on the northerly side of Boston Post Road on a parcel identified as 91 Boston Post Road, Assessor Map 31.0, Lot 2. Shall we discuss?
I'd like to commend Attorney Garrity for providing more data than I've ever seen presented before. And I know he did say that some of the stuff didn't make it into records, but I don't know if I've ever seen this many letters on attachments. So, and then I think you did provide every question and a lot of data, and it was well presented.
And Mr. May as well.
Just one note before you get going. It's my opinion that everything is in the record and was put into the record, just for the record.
Thank you.
I was wondering if Attorney Carey said he might want to say something during
He was said he
during
was finished.
deliberation. Oh,
We're
okay.
in the meeting part now to vote on it. Any other thoughts on this? We've seen two presentations, basically.
My opinion of this project sort of brings me to the state statutes. And the state statutes remind me of going to criminal court, whereas you are innocent until proven guilty. And that's sort of the way the state statutes are for the affordable housing. We have to have not just maybes. Maybe this is going to be bad. I believe the statute says we are very sure it's going to be a problem. The two issues that we had was, of course, environmental and the traffic situation. I feel that I'm not sure if we have a real traffic problem. It's not the greatest, most convenient, but I don't think I'd want to go to appeals court with that one. The environmental and the protection of the Latimer Brook and the Nyack River, not sure about that either. I think we've gotten some good response. We've got the state of Connecticut, the East Lyme Wetlands Commission. Those are a couple of tough hurdles. They do the work for us. So I am, based on the state statutes, I'm uncomfortable with denying this.
I still have a few concerns about the traffic. I actually wish the applicant who did the traffic studies would have come to the meeting to be cross-examined. Having driven in that driveway a couple times, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that part, but I don't know. What do you think?
I feel the same way. I remember being there for the site walk, and I remember trying to pull out twice and almost got nailed twice. And I'm definitely not comfortable with that situation. And yesterday I drove up to my daughter's house and saw the summer traffic, and then I was thinking about if anybody were wanting to get in that property during that kind of traffic, they'd have to make a left-hand turn coming from Flanders Four Corners. And behind that area, it's only a one-lane part of the road. It doesn't become 2 lanes until after that driveway. So I can see that traffic getting backed up all the way to, Flanders Four Corners and beyond. during the high peak summer hours, especially on the weekends. And I try to imagine how many units there are, how many cars might there be. I saw the data that said that 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. were going to be the two high traffic times. And trying to imagine how many people coming and going. And not everybody just goes out their house one time during the day. I mean, I go out several times during the day. So I think there's a lot more potentially resident traffic. I worry about the traffic for them. If one person's trying to get out and you have all that summer traffic and no one can, and you have to make a right-hand turn and there's all of that traffic, that's going to back up traffic up into the development. So those are my concerns, and I'm not super comfortable with the traffic issue. And also, I agree with Norm about the environmental issues. The thoughts that I had on that was, especially if you've ever had kids, we all know that sometimes people don't put biodegradable things in the toilet. And, I get concerned about things like that happening, and then you end up with a faulty septic system, and I feel that we have to protect Latimer Brook. I mean, it's important to this community and the surrounding communities. That's my thought.
Anybody else have one?
I feel this, I'm sorry, Jim, did you want to go? Did you want to talk?
No, after you.
Okay. I feel as though
But I
along the
second that.
I feel as though what Norm had said, I can agree with that, as well as Kathy Uhas as well. I do have a problem with the traffic pattern. I too have gone out there, and I think that it does create an unsafe situation for the residents that live here and people visiting. I just think that it's just not a good situation, and already as it is, and then we're going to add another situation on top of an existing not good situation. I don't think that that would do well for our town.
And my comment was I wanted to compliment the board, because if you remember where we started, we had a sod farm, we had more houses, and really, I thought it was a good back and forth. We had questions, they had solutions, and I think we're in a good place. I do know that the CTDOP had reviewed the parking. They made the recommendation of the first 50 feet. The site plan that Norm pointed out. And I really agree with what Norm said. Maybe it's not the greatest, but that's what it is. I think a well-designed septic system is going to provide safe sanitary conditions. I know that some of our problems that came up earlier tonight is Saunders Point, where some of the summer houses got converted into four-season houses, and I don't know if their septic systems ever were updated. I think that's where a lot of our blooms come from. But I just want to thank the board for all the work they did, and Mr. Garrity and Mr. May for putting in that work. So I think it's a lot better where we're at today than where we were at on day one.
Nancy, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, I have many. But in the interest of brevity, I still have to go back to environmental concerns, and I know we heard from the Remo guy, and we heard from Mr. Danila, and I have just tons of faith in Mr. Danila and the work that he's done to keep the river as clean as possible. And I suspect that it's part of our purview as a zoning commission to look down the road at the next 100 years to see where we want things to go and how we can save the river, save the brook, and save the river. Even though this is at the southern edge of the watershed, which does provide the drinking water for many towns, I still have many reservations about how this is going to work, even though, where Mr. Mago, it's all designed to whatever specifications everybody has, but just look at the solar farm and the fact that, a large amount of soil from the solar farm is now carpeting the bottom of Latimer's Brook, and there's not a darn thing anybody can do about it. Oops has happened. But I don't think the town is prudent upon us to to do the best we can to save what we have left for posterity. I don't know, did I say that right?
It sounded good to me. Any other comments? Or I personally would have felt better about the traffic study if the applicant had an outside person do it as opposed to her doing it herself. We don't even know if she's been on the property. That's anyway part of my concern. But anybody else? Are we ready to vote? Or
Yes.
is there a motion, one way or the other?
I'd like to make a motion to deny this amended application for the amended conceptual site plan application.
Would you like to read it?
Yeah, I'll read it. I don't know if you were ready. I thought you were going to say something else.
Do we have we'll read your motion, then we'll see if there's a second.
Okay, this is an application by Kristen Clark, P.E., et al., applicants pursuant CGS Section 8-30G for approval of conceptual site plan that the applicants claim to have modified in response to the Commission's denial of their conceptual site plan application dated April 4th, 2024. The decision is incorporated herein under CGS 830-GH. The modified application is to be treated as an amendment to the original application. The Commission acknowledged that there is a need for affordable housing in the town of East Lyme, and less than 10% of its available housing stock meets the statutory definition of affordable housing. It also acknowledges that the amended application touches on objections to the original application contained in the decision. However, based on the record created over 2 nights of public hearing, including information from the applicants and the representatives, town staff, public input, and the record of the proceedings on the original application, the Commission hereby denies the modified application funding that its denial is necessary to protect substantial public interest in health, safety, and other matters which the Commission may legally consider. B, such public interests clearly outweigh the need for affordable housing, and C, such public interests cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. The Commission finds as to specific public interest. 1A of decision. It is felt that the access and egress plan present a dangerous situation. The speed limit on this section on Route 1 is seriously ignored. The temptation to egress using a left turn is high, as the inconvenience of egressing right and finding a way back is great and has not been adequately addressed. The amended application does not adequately address the traffic safety concerns, including without limitation the safety of left turns onto the public road by which the site will be accessed. Partly because, as the record establishes, actual travel speeds on that road are higher than posted speed limits and are too high for an intersection at the site to be safe. The modifications addressing these concerns are not sufficient to eliminate the necessary to protect the public interest in public safety and health, and the public interest in these concerns outweighs the public interest in affordable housing. 1B of decision. Because of the limited buildable area of the parcel, the positions of the septic systems, leaching fields, and residential units themselves are all forced into being placed on this steep slope without alternative. The risk of stormwater runoff and septic runoff without public sewer is significant. The risk is too great as the Latimer Brook, Niantic River tributary, is on the bottom of the hill. The modifications addressing these concerns are not sufficient to eliminate the basis for this finding that denial of the original and the modified applications is necessary to protect the public interest in the protection of these environmental resources, and that the public interest in these resources outweighs the public interest in affordable housing. Number 2, the substantial public interest
that we are trying to protect are the Niantic River tributary and the motorists accessing and leaving the property. From evidence in the record addressing these issues, we feel that risks involved with developing this land do, in fact, outweigh the need for affordable housing in East Lyme, and there appears to be no alterations that would correct these issues. The modification addressing these concerns are not sufficient to eliminate the basis for this finding that denial of the original and the modified applications is necessary to protect the public interest and the protection of these environmental resources, and that the public interest in these resources outweighs the public interest in affordable housing. For these reasons stated herein, the Commission denies.
Denied. We have a motion on the floor. Does anyone want to second that motion? We have a second. Is there any more discussion, or are you ready to vote on that?
There's a, it mentions, however, based on the record created over 2 nights of public hearing, should that be 3? I lost count.
Tonight.
Tonight was the second?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
2
All right.
tonight.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion to deny the amended conceptual site plan, say aye, or raise your hand as well.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. For all those against the denial,
Aye.
2. It did not pass 4-2. Thank you. Moving on.
It did.
Oh, it did pass. I'm sorry. It passed to deny it. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Okay, we're going to move on to the application of Bruce and Linda Dworak for coastal area management review for property located at 13 Point Road, Giants Neck Beach, Niantic, Assessor Map 4.14, Lot 2. Is someone here to present?
There is, Madam Chair, I think there's a memo from me that you might want to read.
A memo? I don't have your memo. Oh, here. Nancy, can you read the memo? Thank you.
Memo to East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Holland, zoning official, coastal area management review, 13 Point Road, Niantic, dated June 20th, 2024. In this application, it is proposed to demolish an existing home and construct a new residence and garage. The property is identified in the application as 13 Point Road, which is located in the...
Thank you.
Thank you. Leaving position here. The property is identified in the application as 13 Point Road, which is located in the Giants Neck Beach Association. Because the association has its own zoning authority, the East Lyme Zoning Commission jurisdiction is limited to the coastal area site plan issues. A CAM review is required for this project because proposed building location is within 100 feet of a coastal resource, rock shore fronts, and developed shorefront. As the Commission is aware, a coastal site plan reviews are a state mandated program authorized in Chapter 444 of the Connecticut General Statutes. This statute delegates legal authority to zoning commissions to adopt regulations and regulate activities not otherwise exempted occurring above the CJL or coastal jurisdiction line as identified by the Connecticut DEEP and within the defined coastal boundary of the respective communities to protect coastal resources and ensure compliance with the CAM Act's coastal goals and policies. The board is charged with the review of the coastal site plans and may approve, modify, or deny activities proposed after evaluating the specific site and considering the potential effects, both beneficial and adverse, of the activities on coastal resources and their consistency with applicable state coastal goals and policies. In acting on a coastal site plan, the Commission must state its findings and reason for the decision. To approve, the board must find that the proposed activity is consistent with all applicable coastal policy standards and whether or not any potential adverse impacts of the proposed activity on the coastal resources and future water development are acceptable. The board should consider the characteristics of the site, including the location and condition of the on-site coastal resources, if any. The commission must find in approval that the application is consistent with the applicable goals and conditions of the act, and that all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water development activities. The application agent is here this evening and will give a brief presentation.
Okay, could you give us your name and address for the record?
Yeah, of course. My name is Seamus Moran, a professional engineer in Connecticut. I work for H&H Engineering Associates out of Mystic, and I am the civil engineer representing the applicant. I will be very brief. That report was better than I could present, so at least the minutes will show that I'm here. What we're looking to do is, as the note said, it's already approved by the Great Neck Beach Association for the site plan. We're here for the CAM. Coastal Resources, we're abutting the Long Island Sound and a rocky shorefront to the west. We're in a FEMA flood zone, and there's shorelands on the eastern side. As you can see, this here before you is the existing conditions plan. Point Road is on the east side of the property. Long Island Sound's on the left. There's an existing 7-bedroom home and an in-ground pool on the property, along with paved driveway and concrete walkways, and the applicant is looking to remove that, remove the home, remove the concrete walkways, remove the pavement, keep the pool, and construct a new 5-bedroom home on the property. Coverages are actually going down. The footprint is slightly larger of the home, but the impervious surfaces are being reduced by, I believe, 268 square feet. We have soil erosion sediment controls. We have a temporary soil stockpile area shown as far away from the water course as we can, and we have sediment fence shown on the plan as well along down gradient edges of the development. Public water, public sewer, those connections will be maintained, and the soil erosion sediment control measures will be maintained throughout construction, so we don't foresee any adverse impacts to the water course, to the Long Island Sound. With that, hopefully that's brief enough, but if there are questions or...
Is that the cedar-sided house or the white-sided house that's on that street?
Gosh, you know, I almost drove by on the way here. I didn't even drive by the site yet. I'm not sure which house it is. It's right, this is the end of the cul-de-sac here. I think there is one more property just to the south of it.
The white-sided house would be...
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know which one with 13, that's all.
Okay, I wish I could answer that.
Cedar-sided house?
I haven't seen the house yet. I apologize. Sorry.
It's going anyway.
Huh?
It's
It's
going
going anyway.
Point one was the architect. They are designing the building to meet all flood compliance and all of that good stuff. Flood zone 12, minimum 13 per East Lyme regulations, and the home is set to be at first floor 15, so everything will be above the even 13.
Do you know what year it was built about? And the question has to do with lead-based paint. So you're gonna take it down. You gotta contain that.
Asbestos.
If
Sure,
it's
the
even
assessor
older,
part.
then there's asbestos. Whoever's doing the demolition is gonna take that all into account.
Yeah.
All the
demo permit
safety,
will have
keep
to-
it out of the air, keep it out of the water.
Of course. I could find that on the assessor card. If we need that, I can look
Yes,
that up.
please.
I'm trying to find that. Internet. No? I had it up a minute ago, or the GIS.
I think it's just, it's just like a housekeeping question,
Mhm.
Could there be this there? Did you check? Is the people that are gonna do it gonna remediate appropriately?
Yeah, I'll just note that they need a demo permit from the building official who will look at all of those things, and they have to provide insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when they get there, jurisdiction of the building official.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm just curious, how often does a building official go out to check on things like this?
There's a building official and 2 assistants, so they are constantly in and out.
1928
Oh.
was the original one.
Could be a little bit of both.
Correct.
Yeah.
So a demo permit, they would have to look at that. There's there's obviously reasons that they would have to at 1928, so.
Fair enough.
So that would come out in the demo permit.
When are they starting the project?
They wanted to start in February. They didn't know that they needed a CAM application. That's what got involved after that. So hopefully very soon they'll
Oops,
submit
yeah.
the building permit shortly after this.
Okay. And it seems pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve it? Are there any more questions?
I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
On the bottom of my memo, I think is the suggested motion.
Yeah, I don't
I have
that
I have
memo.
to read.
Oh, good.
She has to take back her second.
Oh, excuse me.
It is, yeah. That's in the one right next to us, the white one. Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to make a motion to approve application of Bruce and Linda Dort for coastal area management review for property located at 13 Point Road. What is it? G and B.
Giant Snake Beach.
Thank you. Nantic, Assessor's Map 04.14, Lot 2, for construction of a single-family dwelling. Reasons: the applicant is consistent with all applicable goals and conditions of the CAM Act. Application has taken all reasonable measures to mitigate any adverse impacts of the proposed activity on both coastal resources and future water-dependent uses.
Madam Chair, we'll publish that next Thursday, effective on Friday.
So now we have a second.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Called the vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
So
Pass 600.
published Thursday, effective Friday.
Thank
Next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the reason for my question. This
Yeah,
is in the, it's in the
Thank you.
Moving on to old business, we have listed here subcommittee text amendment mixed use CA zone. Working on it. Is this something, Mr. Peck, you're still interested in pursuing? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Bill was working on the verbiage for the CA.
And still working on it, but I think now we'll have some time to get to that. Things are quieting down a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Affordable housing, we do have an update from Attorney Bleasdale. As of today, he said he was just missing one item of information.
Let me elaborate briefly.
Yes.
It became much more complex than we thought, and this our admin staff has been doing a lot of research, and had to make a lot of contacts with some of these administrators of the affordable housing programs, and they were not responsive. We had to really chase some people down to get the actual facts and counts, and then we had some issues with someone's affordable housing plan. They weren't following it, so we're in the midst of correcting that. So we're very close to the end of the road on this. So we appreciate everybody's patience, but it became much more complex to get the facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was beyond just going to the assessor's cards and that type of thing. This was count the units, factually find out where they are, and do a lot of digging. And so it's been a long task, plus with all the other workload that the staff has this spring. So, but there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay,
So
sounds good. Under new business, we have coming up the application of Ricky Au for Spice Club for renewal of special permit for outdoor dining at 239 Main Street, Niantic. We have the application of William R. Sweeney Esquire for proposed text amendment to section 11.1.4 of the East Lyme zoning regulations. And now we have any business if there's...
I will schedule those for hearings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any business on the floor tonight that anybody would like to bring up?
I have something I'd like to, oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead. I didn't see you talking. Go right ahead.
I, at the risk of, I would like to move the public delegations to the end of the meeting.
After the display last week, I actually think that's a good idea. From my perspective, there's a handful of people that like to hijack the public delegation portion for just their own personal agendas and not, it has nothing to do with land use issue, and I would support that.
I strongly feel that I don't like doing that for two reasons. I would hate to punish the whole town for the activities and the behavior of a couple of people. I can live with listening to the same thing every night. It's only 2 minutes. Secondly, anything we do like this, we're going to be criticized for. And I believe that will pile onto the other pile that we're witnessing already for the last 4 months, 5 months. So I know what you're thinking. I would love to do it, but I think for those two reasons, some people want to come here and they really want to say something. You know, we could be here at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. I don't want to punish the citizens. And I don't want to be criticized any more than we have been.
If we had people coming to talk about land use issues, I would agree with you, but you know, last week we had people paying several $100s an hour for attorneys, having to spend a half hour listening to people having political theater and pushing their own agendas. And I just think that's too
I hear
bad
what you're
as well.
saying about that, but we are here for the public, and I agree with Norm, to make them wait till the end of the meeting. We didn't get out of here till 10:30. It's not serving our town if we do that. That's just my feeling.
Well, also, too, we owe a responsibility to the applicants who hire these people at a substantial rate, huge amounts of money, that we are, discussing and voting on very important issues to the applicant, as well as, their property and the public as well. And we also, I'm concerned about the image that this commission is getting, that we're difficult to work with, and that's not really the case. And, attorneys are going to deem us, not able to work with. I sat here and I watched people in the back, the group that came from New York City, and they got stuck in the traffic and everything. And when that started going off and everything else like that, they are all looking at each other thinking, oh my gosh, what have we done? And just the looks on their faces. So we do owe not only the good residents of the town of East Lyme a responsibility, we also, because some of those residents also are hiring people to do the job, and we do have to, move things along. We're here to do business.
That's a fair point. Having said that, again, we're here for we're elected by the public, and we need to represent them, and I don't think it's fair that to make them wait till 10:30 at night to say something that's going to take 2 minutes.
Right, and they can also send in a letter or correspondence that also goes into the record as well.
Well, I'm not sure everybody knows that, and the other thing too is, these are all televised. Everybody can watch these. They can see tonight that we worked very well in concert together, and so I think that maybe somebody's worrying too much about public perception when we just did a fine job here tonight.
I think one thing to remember is the purpose of the public delegation in zoning is to discuss land use issues, which hasn't happened for a long time.
Yeah, not asking for our resignations. We're volunteers, and we give a lot of time and a lot of effort into making the best decisions that we are knowing how to do, and we educate ourselves. And I don't think that we should have to come here and be bashed when we're doing the very best that we can do.
Why don't we make that clear at the beginning of the meeting? This is about land use issues only.
It's not going to stop,
And
certainly.
two minutes.
Well, because they come, they say, and they go.
They're not interested in
And I've been
zoning.
here, I was off the commission for a while, and there was an open alternate position, an alternate seat, and I applied and I got voted on. There's a process, but the person that keeps complaining about us not following the process has never seen that. Like, they were here the night that I got voted on, but left before I even got the voting. Like, they've never seen the process. By making them wait to see the process, to see how we work together, it would help. And also, it's for stuff that's not on the agenda. And most of the time that people come and talk to us, it's about current ongoing topics.
And we
So
have
a new-
hearings.
A new thing, and it may get on the agenda because we talk about old business, we talk about new business, and people that come in, they might say, oh, I was gonna talk about that, and that may even actually help them formulate what they were gonna say. So they may be touching the tip of the iceberg, they hear us talk about it, and they say, hey, I wanted to comment on this, although it wouldn't actually be something that's not on the agenda, but it would be something that was new business. So I think it may hurt in one case is that it moves it to the end of the position, but it may help in other cases.
Well, we have a motion on the floor to move it. At what point in the meeting is your motion?
After correspondence,
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye and raise your hands, please.
I
Aye. Against?
Aye.
It passed 4-2. Thank you. Moving right along.
May I ask for clarification? Where in the meeting did we say to put it? Was that before old and new business after regular meeting, or I don't
right here,
hear-
Jen, right here, after correspondence.
Oh, the end.
Right before the chairman makes statements.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see, zoning official, do you have anything
I
tonight?
don't have a lot in view of the evening. 138 Boston Post Road is looking for COs. They're talking about converting from the apartment approval to condos. It's being researched on our end. So I will report back further what we find. The legal department's looking into that. So until I have a full report, I don't have much more to say, and we're still busy, but it's nice. It is starting to ease up a little bit.
So are you saying they can't sell the condos until they,
I'm not saying either. I don't know the answer to that, but the question's been asked just to ensure that when this commission approved it, it was presented to you as apartments. Now it's built, and the property owners are looking to make it condos, and I question, is there any real difference? And that's what the legal department's looking into, just to ensure we have that answer, because we'd anticipate that that may occur again, and we want to ensure that we fully understand what our responsibilities are and are not. So that's it, and then we're still busy. I haven't heard any more on the Tracus project, so don't know what's going on there.
Any more on the restaurant on Main Street about their patio situation?
Which one?
The one that has, the one that you've asked a few times to take care of there?
We're pursuing that a little further.
Okay.
okay.
So I have nothing more, Madam Chair, thank you.
Comment, go ahead.
Do we have provisions? I may, when I read the regs, I must have missed it. So if a project, we okay a project and it goes forward, and then for some reason it gets sold, do we have provisions that we can retract our?
No. No, you can buy and sell special permits. That's commonplace in the land use development world. But they have to build that which was approved by the commission, and that's true in pretty much in every town, unless they come back for an amendment to the plan or to the permit.
Are you asking specific to the condo apartment question, or something different?
Well, partially to the apartment condo question, because in my mind, there's a humongous difference between a person owning apartments and maintaining septic, water, everything you would do for an apartment. But if you do it to condo owners, then you lose.
And that is the question.
That is
So it's been asked of legal, because in essence it's residential to residential, so then it's a question of, is ownership really have anything to do with the project at all? So that's going to be pursued, and we'll get a response to that.
Well, back when 91 Boston Post Road was presenting, was it last week? There was a big discussion, were they condos or were they rentals? And I think they ultimately said rentals, but
We may find that we might amend our regulations in the future, depending on what kind of report we get. May not affect this project, but it may affect something in the future. But it's being pursued by our law firm to advise this commission, because I anticipated this would come up and this question may come from the commission, so we're going to clarify that and get you all up to speed.
So we don't need a subcommittee then?
No.
Okay.
Are there any test cases on this pending?
Not sure yet. I had a conversation today with legal, but no definitive answers at this particular time. Got some preliminary feedback, but yet to be determined.
Ms. Hardy, do you have anything for us tonight?
Mercifully brief. Especially after the last meeting, I could barely walk when we got over here. These chairs are like 50 years old. Okay, so
I'll
the
take that.
Board of Selectmen heard a very extensive report from the Yale Charette Committee, and with numerous recommendations that were proposed. This was undertaken by the Main Street organization, and they received a grant for this study to take place. This was not something the town paid for. They had a number of recommendations, some received with a smile and some with a little bit of dismay, but they did say that in interviewing people and talking about potential suggestions, that it came through loud and clear that people like Niantic. They don't want to be Mystic. They don't want to be some other place such as that. They like living in Niantic and East Lyme. And so they said they heard the message loud and clear, which isn't a surprise because this has been stated before. And they admitted that that in many of the reviews that they do, many people comment on the Niantic community. Many other towns where they've done charrettes have mentioned many of the positive qualities of Niantic, the small town atmosphere, and so on. One of the things that they thought was a priority was to make a determination of the future of the police station, which is, of course, a primary source and focus. And one of the reasons that that has not been moved forward is, of course, the cost of doing a survey of the property and its potential pollution from transformers and things that, as many of us old-timers remember, were stored at the back of the property. So that's really been one of the holdups.
Quick, the former police station,
Yes,
right?
the former,
Yes.
not the new one.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, thank heavens, not the new one. So they had quite a few recommendations. One of the things that I thought would be fairly easy and inexpensive to address, and that is, they said that many people that they talked to as they interviewed tourists, but people who were not residents, that they come to town, they don't know where to park, there's no signage, and the complaint was that there was no place to park except on the streets. Well, of course, that's not true. There is plenty of parking, but unless you're really in town frequently, you don't know where that is. So better signage to direct people as they come into town. Of course, we do have less parking because we have several new establishments in town which draw tourists and businesses, which you people are well aware of. One of the things that they had suggested was that we could increase our parking by potentially having at the back of the theater property, we used to refer to it as the Mitchell parking lot, that we could have a small 2 or 3 story parking garage, and that was met with silence.
Mrs. Hardy, do you know what group that suggested that, that would be great for downtown Niantic to have what group did that? It wasn't a survey, it was a study, right?
Yeah.
It was in the paper, but I can't find the article on it. Somebody had told me about it, so I was kind of curious. Do you know the group that...
It's the Yale Charette.
Thank you.
And that was one of the possibilities, but they could see that just kind of met with.
And where did they come from?
Yale University. They're a group of people that go around and advise, give suggestions for towns that ask for some advice about make some suggestions. They also made several suggestions that they in their interviews with people, that the request for more bike paths, safer walking pedestrian areas, but of course, as you know, we're limited because 156 is a state highway, and I personally wouldn't want to be riding a bike along there. But another suggestion, which has come up before, is to make use of the the railroad siding that's downtown, that runs along parallel, goes over to the lumber yard, that could be made more walkable and more viable and open up some of the less accessible places in town. That had come up in a previous study as well.
But similar to a rail trail type
Mm-hmm.
of?
Yes. The report with recommendations is available. The report that was given to the board is, of course, online, and copies of the report, I think, are available at Town Hall. So some things to consider, and I think opportunity for some community discussion, community-wide, and some input about what we might like to see and not see.
Did anybody ever bring up the fact a splash pad at McCook's? A lot of people have confronted me and they've asked me, and I said, I don't know if it's ever been discussed. Has it ever been discussed since you've been on the board of selectmen?
I don't recall that being in the charrette report, and that would of course come under Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard it mentioned, but it did not come up under this circumstance.
Thank you.
The Commission of Natural Resources will be reporting at the next board meeting. They also have received some funding, ARPA funding, to take a look at the town and how we might be more proactive in preventing environmental damages, make our community more sustainable, planning in advance along the shoreline for potential disasters that might occur, and having plans for that. So I think that those were some of the biggies, and
I saw a sign on Main Street that said they were taking a survey of a dog park. Do you know anything about that?
I haven't seen it, but this has been on the topic for on conversation for at least 10 years. There was funding and donation that was taken up, I would say maybe 10 years ago, and the plans just kind of fell through, and all the money that was donated was given back to whoever the organization was. So I'm not surprised that that's up again. There's been some talk about it being at possibility at the Darrow Pond property. That was one of the suggestions that was made. But I haven't heard anything else about that. So a lot of the things that they discussed, which I think I'm back to the Commission of Natural Resources. I think that many of the things that were suggested would want to have further discussion from zoning, planning, and inland wetlands. But the big issue is trying to, as I said, be preventive and anticipating potential damages to the environment that might occur with extreme weather patterns, and also doing more work with developers in regarding requiring native plantings, native to the area instead of invasives. We have a big problem along the shorefront with invasives taking over in areas that we've hoped to conserve. So I think that's enough for me for tonight.
Thank you.
Any questions? Happy to answer.
I had always heard those comments on Niantic and how well we're doing, but it was always associated with the excellent work of the zoning commission.
Absolutely. I
Amen.
second that. Well, I can't be judgmental as I have several other ex officios.
Okay. Mr. Liska, you went to planning in May?
Yeah, I do not have a report.
Oh, okay. That's okay. And Denise, I think, went June 11th, but she's not here tonight.
I went,
Oh, you went for her?
yeah.
Oh, okay. We didn't know that.
Yes. I prepared a speech, yeah.
Oh, okay.
2 minutes.
A lot of time was spent on bike paths.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, put the timer on. We got it on.
A lot of time.
It's Norm.
They did approve a re-subdivision of one lot on 123 Scott Road. They talked about a text amendment to section 4.14 of the subdivision regs as to the removal of an environmental review section. They seem to favor leaving in the archaeological survey requirement. More bike paths. They want to adopt a policy about bikes, street design, sidewalks. There was a motion to approve to adopt a policy statement for streets and send to the Board of Selectmen for a public hearing as an amendment to the POCD.
Well, I have a question. When you said that was there a motion or a suggestion to remove their environmental review from,
It was discussed.
oh, just discussed, okay.
Yes.
So no vote? No.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No correspondence that I'm aware of. I think we're all ready to go home. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'm sure we all say aye.
I-
We have to